recently spent 60 days pursuing the life of a raw vegan without really knowing what does it mean to be a vegan. Hey, Reg here. Welcome back to the channel and this episode of Food for Thought.
This is a world premiere. This is a world premiere.
I've been through a whole lot, trial, tribulation, but I know.
The term vegan was coined in 1944 by Donald Watson when he co-founded the Vegan Society in England. First, to mean non-dairy vegetarian, and later, the doctrine that man should live without exploiting animals. Now, the word vegan is the beginning and the end of vegetarian. Because, as Watson believed, veganism starts with vegetarianism and follows it through to its logical conclusion. Now, veganism is a response to an unnecessary and cruel food system. As a child, Watson witnessed the slaughter of animals on his uncle's farm, and the mid-20th century gave rise to industrialized farming and the fast food industry. But it seems difficult to ignore that in 1944, the world was engaged in the deadliest military conflict in history, World War II. In World War II, there were an estimated 80 million casualties. 50 million of them were civilians. From 1941 to 1945, as Donald Watson was developing his theories, we saw the death of over 11 million people in the Holocaust. 1 million of them were children. In September 1944, just months before Watson hand-typed his first vegan newsletter, London was attacked by the world's first long-range ballistic missile. Still, in November 1944, while the planet engaged in the war to end all wars, Watson, his wife Dorothy, and 4 friends founded the Vegan Society, choosing a different battle, which Watson would continue for over 60 years. Was it tunnel vision that caused Watson to focus his energy with such fervor on the treatment of non-human animals, with such unspeakable atrocities happening on a world scale to people, many of them innocent? Or was he making a connection between the treatment of animals and the treatment of humans? How often, while capturing ideas on his typewriter or in discussions about veganism with his colleagues, were they halted by planes overhead, or the sound of air raid sirens, or bombs going off in the distance? Was pursuing this cause for the animals a response to the very real dangers in the world around them, or a way to shut them out? Imagine a 35-year-old Watson entering a room where people were discussing the latest news from the war, whose son, whose brother, whose cousin, whose uncle had been killed, what town had been devastated, or whatever other horror, and trying to turn the discussion to animal cruelty? It seems Watson was aware, at least on some level, of a connection between the war and the treatment of animals. In the very first issue of the Vegan News, Watson states, "We can see quite plainly that our present civilization is built on the exploitation of animals, just as past civilizations were built on the exploitation of slaves. And we believe the spiritual destiny of man is such that in time he will view with abhorrence the idea that men once fed on the products of animals' bodies. Even though the scientific evidence may be lacking, we shrewdly suspect that the great impediment to man's moral development may be that he is a parasite of lower forms of animal life." I'm going to include some links to the very first edition of the Vegan News, and I hope you'll give that a glance. Thank you for checking in to this edition of Food for Thought. Like it if you liked it, and I certainly hope you'll subscribe. This is Reg signing off. Love yourself. Peace.
And I love myself. The world is a ghetto with big guns and dick inside.